Willkommen zurück bei A Hand in the Darkness, bei einem kleinen Novel-Spiel. Und wie ihr seht, sind wir zurück zu unserem letzten Speicherstand gegangen, zu unserer letzten Entscheidung, die wir getroffen haben, nachdem wir Montys Bad Relationship End freigeschalten haben. Und als wir das letzte Mal hier waren, haben wir geklickt Enough is Enough, nachdem er wieder seine Eifersuchtsattacke hatte. Und ich persönlich würde immer noch dieselben Entscheidungen treffen, weil er mir tierisch auf den Sack gehen würde mit dem Ganzen. Aber nachdem wir ja jedes Ende freispielen wollen, würde ich sagen, klicken wir jetzt auf Try to Understand Him. Alex, what's wrong? What's with this face? Are you mad at me? I sighed and rubbed my temples, feeling an impending headache. Disappointed, I would say. I turned my head to face him. There was a shadow of fear on his features. We have already been through this, right? Why are you mixing another person in our relationship? Can you imagine how uncomfortable poor Rick must feel? You care more about how he feels than... I cut the sentence short, not wanting to hear that argument again. No, Monty, it's you and only you, the one I love. I made a pause. Monty stared at me in awe, with his mouth half open. His eyes are shining, showing a battle of mixed feelings. But Rick is our friend, and I care of him in a different way than I care for you, of course. But I don't want him to feel left aside. I want us to spend time with him. He bit his lower lip, but held my stare. You're right. Rick is great. He's a great guy. I really appreciate his friendship as well, of course. Yes, he's great, but I want you to always remember the one I love is you. I thought my words would give him peace of mind, but instead he took my hand in his and looked dejected. But what if you realize he's better than me and... I raised my eyebrows in surprise. I'm not going to exchange you for another person, Monty. I could say the same, right? Both Damien and Rick are more intelligent than me and more interesting. What? Are you kidding? You're kind and sweet and lovely. There's no way I can't even look at another person. I smiled weakly. Well, that's the same way I feel about you. So you don't have to feel jealous or anxious when I hang out with the other mates. I'm not comparing you to anyone else. They are my friends, and you are my special one. Monty threw his arms around me. Oh, Alex, I love you so much. I'm so lucky to have such a cute and understanding boyfriend. I felt my cheeks go warm. Boyfriend. It sounded great on Monty's lips. We were starting to attract too much attention, so I gently shook his arms off me. We went inside the hall and headed to the main doors with a smile in our faces. Will you talk to Rick and tell him it's alright to spend time with me on our own? He nodded and reached for my hand since we weren't any students inside. Of course, I'll do it tonight. Alex? Yes? Will you help me to cope with this? I don't want to ruin our relationship. I can't stand the idea of losing you. I looked around, checking that we were alone, and then I leaned in to briefly kiss his lips. Me neither. Just talk to me about it. Tell me every time something bothers you. Don't let it eat your insides. That's not good. It's difficult to reason with you once your mind is all wrapped around an idea. Oh, am I so stubborn? Well, a bit. On most times, I don't have the slightest idea about what you prompted in. Alright. I try to be more open then. We let go of our hands since we were already outside the study room. I rested my back against the door, not in the mood of going back to study anymore. We are here. I should go back to my training too. I nodded. Alex, thank you so much for trying to understand me and for being there for me. My heart ached softly at his words. I wish I could hug him again right then. Let's be always together next year in university after that. The ache became a stabbing pain in my chest. With everything that was happening right then, with the elusive attacker, I couldn't be even sure we would be together in a week. It wasn't the right moment to voice my doubt, though. I smiled at Monty and answered, "That would be great." The next day I asked Monty to come with me to the third floor after class. We had studied a couple of hours after dinner the previous evening, so our conscience was quite clean in that aspect. And I needed closure about the elusive Andrew. He hadn't appeared at the poker match that Sunday afternoon either, according to Damien. "I'm not complaining, but it surprised me a bit that it's you this time who wants to come here alone with me, Alex." I sighed. I still hadn't shared my fears with him, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to, but somehow I was already parting from him, trying to spend some nice moments with him that we could remember fondly afterwards. If we managed to see that man's face and he wasn't my attacker, then that meant goodbye. We walked by the main corridor hand in hand, following the sound of the hammers on the roof. "Say, are you still mad at me for how I reacted the other day?" "No, I'm not." And it was true. There were other concerns taking priority right then on my mind, and the prospect of leaving St. Michael's and Monty made me realize how deep my feelings for him ran. All the rest seemed petty problems at that moment. But I was wondering if you have always reacted this way when there is someone you like. His cheeks had turned a lovely red, and I couldn't help but smile fondly at him. "Well, before you there was only one boy I liked, but I never dared to confess. You're the first person I'm really in love with." My pulse raised at the implication of his words. My mouth felt suddenly dry and I couldn't find my own words. He looked my eyes with me and brushed my wrist with his thumb. His green eyes were so intense, so loaded with feelings that I couldn't even breathe. He leaned in a bit, cocking his head, and I did the same, happy to show him, even without words, how much I loved him. I grabbed his face and stroked his cheeks and his neck while he snuggled deeply. I didn't want to let him go, ever. He pushed me against the wall and our kiss turned heated. At some point I noticed the hammers had stopped, but I found it difficult to care when I had Monty's hands caressing the small of my back, slithering under my shirt until they touched bare skin. "Monty." He had moved to my neck and was sucking hard. The mark of the other day was still slightly visible, and he seemed determined in making a new one. A part of my mind that seemed far, far away right then reminded me we were there for a task and that we shouldn't be doing that instead. A hand squeezing my buttock made me shoo away that nagging part of my mind. I suddenly froze. Was that a girl's jiggle? Hold on, there's no way a girl could have sneaked in a school. Not in the third floor, I thought. Not even the maids come here. Unless... A cold sweat started falling down my back. I remembered that first evening in St. Michael's, the first time I came up there at night. There had been a female love as well, right? At that moment I thought what I had heard was just my imagination, or perhaps one of my maids had lost putting up a woman's voice, but it was hardly possible, and later I just forgot. But then, with that odd sensation again, as if 100 eyes were fixed on me, making my skin prickle, I couldn't dismiss it so easily. Completely oblivious, Monty kept kissing my jaw and running his hands over my body. He noticed my attention at last and moved away to look at my face. "Alex, what's wrong? Haven't you heard it?" "Heard what? The hammers? Ah, they have stopped, yes." I opened my mouth to tell him that I wasn't talking about the hammers when the thought hit me. He hadn't heard the love? I wondered if he had heard it at the first night, then, if any of them had heard. Puzzled and suddenly afraid, I studied our surroundings with uneasiness. The corridor was empty. There wasn't any trace of the workers, or of anything else, being from this world or from the other. Monty was watching me with concern, and I hesitated about telling him about the love and my uneasiness or not. He would surely mock me again. Die nächste Entscheidung. Er hat eigentlich gesagt, wo wir oben waren. Aber ich glaube, das hat gar nichts mit dem Ending zu tun. Ich weiß gar nicht, ob das mit dem Strang, aber ich glaube schon, dass es ihm total, ja doch, das hat schon mit demselben Geschichtsstrang, stimmt schon, dass es ihm total leid tut, dass er uns damals mit Rick und Damien da oben veräppelt hat. Und deswegen würde ich einfach sagen, tell him everything. Ich werde nochmal speichern, wir werden die andere Möglichkeit auch nochmal ausprobieren, aber jetzt würde ich erstmal sagen, tell him everything. So, kurz speichern. I didn't mind if Monty would laugh at me at that point. I needed to take that out of my system. Have you heard a woman's laugh? A moment ago? He frowned. A woman? Up here? So you haven't. He shook his head, giving me a puzzled look. I also heard it the first time you took me here, the night of the prank. Alex, you are really easy to suggest, you know? He sighed loudly and moved away, still holding my hand. It's clear that you didn't like this play. Let's check those men and leave as soon as possible, all right? I nodded and started to following him around the corridor, but then I caught a glimpse of something in the corner of my eye. I turned my head to look better at it and froze in the spot, astonished. There was a luminescent figure floating in the air just some feet away at the other side of the corridor. If you watched carefully, you could discern it was a young woman's figure, dressed in a plain black and with her hair done in a tight bun. She had a stern air, but her eyes shone with amusement, and I was certain that she was witnessing us a moment ago. Bewildered, I looked back at Monty, but he was staring at me with a different kind of surprise. What happened? He can't see her? I gulped and tried to regain my voice in vain. The woman's figure moved. She raised one finger to her lips, as if asking me to be silent, and pointed to the wall beside her with the other hand. I followed her gesture and saw it then. One of the rotten wooden panels of the wall was slightly open. It was a hidden passage. I gasped in surprise. What is it, Alex? Tell me, please. Are you okay? The woman smiled warmly at me and repeated the gesture with the finger in front of her lips. Was she asking me to not tell anyone to Monty or my friends? I nodded, looking at her. She started to vanish then, first her features and right after the light surrounding her. I let go of Monty's hand and approached the spot where she had stood. There was nothing left, nothing at all, not a mark on the floor or behind her. But the panel on the wall was still open. Monty joined me and saw it at last. Oh, it's a hidden door, right? Was it open before when we passed in front of it? I didn't notice. You're really observant. I was still in shock, so I didn't say a word. We opened the panel and a flight of stairs going down to the second floor appeared. So, this is how your attacker slipped past us the other day. Good to know. Do you want to go and spy the workers now? They seem to be having a rest. I shook my head. Sorry, I don't feel like it right now. Would you mind if we come back later with Damien and Rick and explore this hidden passage? I wanted to leave the third floor right then. Monty smiled weakly at my words. Sure, let's go before they see us then. We reached the main stairs trying to be silent and went down to meet our friends in the study room. They were really excited when we told them we had found a secret staircase and I let them plan our next exploration trip. I was still uneasy after the strange appearance. Was it the nurse? I thought the whole story was fake. But whoever it was, since she has helped me, I did what she asked and didn't say a word about her. The four of us went back to that damn third floor, and same evening after dinner. It was better with them by my side, of course, but I still had goosebumps all over every time I thought I saw something moving in the corner of my eye. Relax, Alex. Look, we have a lamp this time. He shoved it to my nose, and I had to dodge it so it didn't hit me. Monty and Damien giggled, and Rick huffled and shook his head in annoyance. Monty grabbed my hand in the semi-darkness. I couldn't deny that made me feel better. Don't worry, we will go directly to the hidden panel, so we don't have to stay here more than a few minutes, okay? He squeezed my hand, reassuring, and I squeezed his back as an answer. We found the panel quite easily, although it was closed this time. Rick pressed the wood on different spots until we heard a faint click. Oh, this is clever. You just have to push here in the sides and it opens. He pulled it open and Damien lit up the narrow wooden stairs. Okay, everybody. This stair looks as old as a mummy, so be careful where you tread. He stepped on the first and Rick followed. Then it was my turn and Monty closed our little expedition group. Ich hoffe, man hört gerade den Staubsauger im Hintergrund nicht. Wenn ja, tut's mir sehr leid. Ich kann leider nichts dagegen tun. Ich habe eigentlich ein Nicht-Stören-Schild an der Tür, aber okay. The wood creaked on the walls were damp with humidity, almost black near the ceiling. The putrid stench made us cover our nose with the brim of our jackets. It was obvious that the stair wasn't currently in use, since it hadn't undergone any kind of maintenance work in ages. But a flight of stairs arrived shortly to a narrow landing, where it kept going down the second floor. Look, there's a door on the landing. I bet these stairs lead to the kitchen. The servants' area is like a labyrinth, but all the ways end up leading to the kitchen. Wait, you mean a worse labyrinth than the rest of the school? That's hardly possible. Should we try this door then? Of course. Let's see if it opens. The door was shut and needed a key to open it, but a quick glance to the fragile state of the wood assured us that a kick would do the same service. Let's push it open. Ah, there's no space for a good kick. You guys step aside to the stairs and let me take a little run. We did as he asked, and Damien ran and shoved his shoulder against the door. The wood creaked pitifully, but didn't give in. Damien grunted and tried again. And this time his bump prompted a myriad of splinters, and the door all but collapsed. Yay, you did it! Well done, Bull. Bull? I patted his back with a grin and stepped inside the small room guarded by the door, ignoring his offended look. It was a square space of 2 meters, but 2, so we couldn't fit inside all at the same time. I directed the light of our lamp towards every corner of the room, but it only contained a table and 2 simple chairs, nothing else. On top of the table there was a small chest, half opened, and a pile of disarranged papers. Oh, they are letters, aren't they? I think so. Let me look at them. Rick and I sat at the table when Monty held the lamp and Damien searched the chest. I didn't know what we were looking for, honestly. That is, until I recognized a photograph Damien was taking out the chest. Hey, that's me! In the picture, that's me last year. What? I grabbed the picture and the 4 of us studied it. There wasn't any doubt. It was a family picture taken the previous spring for my mother's birthday, but my family had been cut out the photo and only my sitting figure reminded. It was scary. Damien took all the papers out of the box, roughly, spilling them onto the table and even down to the floor. Alright, whoever is after Alex is clearly hiding something here. Let's find evidence. We went through shopping lists and letters that made no sense to me. Then some bills and bank registers. Alex, do you recognize my name? Do you recognize any name? I frowned in concentration. No, not so far. Let me see that pile over there. I got it. I think I got it. We all turned to look at him. Monty was reading a yellowish letter with bright eyes. He passed it to me, dodging Damien's greedy hands. There's your full name in this letter, Alex, but the rest, I can't understand it fully. Let me see. Let Alex read it first. And they gave me a minute of calm while I tried to decipher the handwriting. The contents of the letter made me be glad of being already sitting, because my legs felt suddenly like jelly. What is it? Tell us, Alex. I didn't have words left. I just shook my head, too bewildered and upset to try speak. Damien finally grabbed a piece of paper and Rick and he ran their eyes along the paragraphs. This letter is signed by an Emily White. Does she belong to your family? I nodded. Yes, Aunt Emily, my late Uncle Edward's widow. Damien finished reading first. Oh Lord, what a bitch. Damien, mind your tongue. What tongue? She paid some criminals to murder Alex. Monty snipped the paper from Rick's hand and tried to read it again. Hey, I wasn't done yet. Oh, shut up. Where does it say that? I can't barely read this handwriting. Why would someone want to murder their nephew? Especially someone as nice as Alex. It says she wants to avoid Alex from inheriting the whole of his uncle's fortune. I shook my head in disbelief. This makes no sense, guys. I only got a small amount for my education in my uncle's will. I can't understand any of this. Damien stowed the letter again and proceeded to fold it carefully and took it inside his jacket pocket. We can leave the details to the police. We have the letter and we should keep also those bank registers since they could be related. Yes, they could be the payments made to those criminals. I agree, we should better keep them. So, we can go to the police now? Yes? Yes. And Alex, I think it's time to phone your parents. As much as I dreaded it, they were right. It was time to move forward. I phoned my father first thing in the morning, and when we arrived to St. Michael's at lunchtime, I explained everything to him and the head teacher at the head's office, and afterwards we moved matters to the town's police station. I was trembling during all the morning's lessons, and the only thing that made me feel stronger was glancing at Monty's by my side and exchanging a weak smile. If only he could go with me to the police. But that wasn't possible, of course. I had to sit on our car next to my father and face his questions on my own. I don't understand why you didn't tell me what was happening since the start. He had all the right to be upset, I knew. I'm sorry, I didn't want to disappoint you. Oh, come, nothing of this is your fault. But I never got in trouble before, and I thought if I told you, your reaction would be sending me back home. He looked at me, astonished. Well, of course I don't want you to be hurt. Your mother will have a heart attack when she finds out about this. But I want to stay all the same, especially now that we have unmasked the culprit. He raised his eyebrows but ended up smiling fondly at me. So you want to stay that much, even if it means putting your life on the line? My cheeks felt hot and my pulse raised, but I nodded all the same. Then, if you want it so badly, I suppose I can't take you back you home. I can't take you back home. But we're staying at a hotel in town until the police tell us those men are on our bars, all right? I nodded again, relieved. Thank you, Dad. He chuckled lightly. You have changed a lot these last months, Alex. St. Michael's having a good influence on you, I see. Well, the school is demanding and strict. My new friends are great. They have helped me a lot with everything, this issue included. I'm glad. His eyes started at the road with a faraway look again. Alex, aren't you going to ask what has prompted Aunt Emily to act that way? Honestly, I didn't want to think about it, and I thought you would tell me sooner or later anyway. He nodded in agreement. It will be sooner. I have to give explanations in the police station, and that's not the way I want you to find out about this. So where do I start? First, what is about Uncle Edward's fortune? He only left me an amount for my studies, right? That shouldn't annoy her so much. My father looked uncomfortable. Well, about that, your mother and I decided not to tell you all the truth until you were a bit older or more mature. But in fact, you have inherited almost the totality of my brother Edward's wealth. And I can't tell you, it's a lot. He was well off and owned a factory and a bunch of apartment buildings in our hometown, plus his house, which is particularly a manor. All of that will be yours when you reach 21. Even his house? And how about Aunt Emily? Where was he supposed to live if he gave me his house? And why would he do such a thing? My father sighed. She has an assignation. My brother ensured that she would still live comfortably even with this arrangement. And for your last question, he turned to look at me with dead eyes. My heart skipped a beat. What happens, Dad? Please tell me. He focused on driving in silence for a moment, but after the long and awkward pause, he started talking again. Please, don't be upset. I swear your mother and you wanted to tell you one day. We just didn't think Edward was going to pass away so soon, so we thought it would be better if we waited a little more. But it's about time, I get it, especially after what's happened. Nobody expected Emily to react that way. She must be out of her mind. Please, get to the point. Sorry, you're right. Look, what we should have told you is that Emily has reacted this way because you are his late husband's illegitimate son. Your mother and I raised you as our own child, but we're not your real parents. I opened my mouth to ask him to stop saying nonsense, to tell him that this wasn't funny, but he was deadly serious and my words died on my lips. Yes, Alex, what I'm telling you is the truth. Edward had you with another woman when he was already betrothed to Emily. He didn't know of your existence until 2 years later, when said woman appeared on their hold with you and said she couldn't take proper care of you and she was leaving you in your father's care from then on. Of course, Emily was furious and wanted to leave you in our orphanage, but my brother refused. They didn't have any child, and I know he tried to convince Emily with every possible argument, but it was all in vain. His last resort to keep you near was asking your mother and me to take care of you as if you were our own son. Our children were already teenagers, but we were happy to comply. I really hope we always treated you as our child and you didn't notice the difference. I didn't. I always thought you spoiled me because I was the youngest. He smiled warmly. That too. We didn't talk about that much, but I'm sure Edward was proud of you, and he will be still prouder up there in heaven when he sees you all grown up and graduated first in St. Michael's and afterwards in college. I smiled back, but I felt sad and uneasy. I will need time to mull over this new information. Mom and Dad weren't Mom and Dad anymore? What nonsense! They would always be my parents for me. They were the ones who raised me, who nursed me when I was ill, who taught me the first letters, the one I always trusted even more than I trusted my elder siblings. That wasn't going to change, ever. I was back at St. Michael's the next day, fortunately. The police had enough evidence to find the criminals hidden in the school among the servants. It turns out we didn't recognize any name in the bank register because they were using fake names in the school, but they seemed to be quite familiar to the police. It was an organized band, well known for previous deeds. Out of the 5 new servants, plus another accomplice they found hiding in town. The only one without a criminal record was Sarah, it seemed. The boy we knew as Mark seemed to have vanished thought. Alex! He ran directly to my arms. I hugged him tightly, grinning from ear to ear without minding at all that our friends were watching us with amusement. I'm so glad you're back and safe. Yes, that's the most important. They all patted my back as greeting. I hadn't felt so good in my life. The threat was over, the mystery solved, and I was back to my boyfriend and my good friends. Nothing else mattered. Or almost nothing. And the Christmas exams are around the corner, so team study in 5 minutes? Monty and I groaned and Damien laughed out loud, the bastard. Okay, back to my old, nice but tiresome daily life. The month flew and the school year was over before I could get used to the idea of leaving St. Michael's and my friends. I studied hard with Rick every afternoon and most nights during finals, thanks to the coffee Vermont's Mrs. Hutchinson offered to Damien. My grades gradually went up as Rick had predicted, and Monty's once descended quite a bit as well. I had time to come to terms with with what my father explained to me about my real father and mother. He told me we could use part of my assignation to hire a detective in order to track down my biological mother, but I refused. She hadn't contacted me in 13 years, so it was obvious she didn't want anything to do with me. I chose to keep considering the person who raised me as my father and mother. I didn't need anyone else. I also spent some time wondering about the strange glowing figure in the third floor. I asked the older teachers, but nobody could tell me if the nurse's tale was true or not. It was rather annoying. I thought of going back to the third floor to search for her again, but the mere thought gave me the chills, if I have to be honest, and I never came back to the place. Besides, hadn't she asked me with her gesture to be silent about her? I understood as much, at least. So, even if she seemed a gentle and not threatening creature, I preferred to avoid any further encounter with her. Although sometimes when I was outside to the cricket pitch, I looked back to the school building and I was able to glimpse a glow behind a window. It would always disappear in the blink of an eye. We were waiting in the hall outside the head teacher office. It was the end of the term party, and in a while Rick would offer the inaugural speech outside in the grounds, now peppered with tables and chairs and decorated with laces and flowers. He was the #1 student in our promotion. Damien was second, and while I was just slightly above average, it was exultant when the head teacher spoke in his office with my father, and he said he was going to recommend me for any university I choose, even Cambridge or Oxford. But right then it was Monty and his father the ones who were inside the head teacher's office, and the three of us who sat outside biting our nails with nervous. Our families were already out in the front garden greeting the other parents and enjoying the party. I'm sorry to say this, but he won't make it, not with his grades. Rick, shut up! You don't know. But it's the truth. You should have encouraged him to study more. He would have listened to you. I doubt it. All that was in his head was that frigging cricket. Hey, at least he improved a lot in that. He's quite a decent player by now. But not enough to gain a cricket grant to Cambridge or Oxford. The three of us sighed. I still hadn't decided which university I would apply to, and Rick was still considering his option as well, but Damien was going to Oxford. His father didn't give him any other choice. Wouldn't it be great if the four of us could meet again at the university the next year? But that, of course, depended on the outcome of Monty's grades. So far, they weren't what you would call brilliant. Finally, the door opened and the voice of Monty's father and the head office arrived to our ears as he said the farewells. Monty appeared at the door gap, serious and quiet. My chest ached. This is it. This is goodbye then. I thought. I couldn't believe it. After so many efforts. Monty's father tousled his hair and told him to join his family at the table as soon as possible. Monty came closer, his face blank. Monty. I tried to gather all the encouraging words I knew and put them together in a sentence, but before I could speak, Monty chuckled and offered us a mischievous grin, his green eyes shining with amusement. What did I tell you? The head gave me the pass. I jumped in joy and rushed to hug him while our friends joined us, watching him in awe. How come? With your grades? I bet your father bribbled him. Hey, my father's not like yours, Mr. Diplomatic. No, he told us he was going to back up my application at Cambridge or Oxford because of my academic record, and also because our teacher have told him I have worked hard to keep a balance between my cricket training and my lessons. Damien booed to this. Sports always get all the support, I knew it. So you can join us at Oxford with your average grades, that's what you mean? Hold on, who has said we are all going to meet in Oxford? I haven't decided yet. Oh, come on. You know perfectly well for me is Oxford or Oxford. I won't be able to pass a single subject if you are not there to tutor me, and you know that. You didn't ask for my help even once. What are you saying now out of the blue? Come on, think of a poor little bird here. He will He would be forced to join a sports club in Oxford in order to gain points if you don't help us. I laughed. I really couldn't help it. So I'm also attending Oxford next year, Of course you are. We can even book 2 adjunct bedrooms and will be as if nothing had changed from St. Michael's. Monty and I shared a amused look. 2 bedrooms? Yes, bedrooms in Oxford are usually just for 2 people, so Rick and I could share one and Alex and you the other one. I blushed at the implication, so they already assumed that Monty and I would have a bedroom for ourselves the next term. The implication was a bit embarrassing, but it was our friends who made it, and it seemed the most natural thing in the world to them. I couldn't help but feel happy at thinking about our life at university, the 4 of us together again. And Monty by my side with privacy at last. Damien elbowed me while laughing. Alex, your face is all red. This means I have convinced you, right? Monty threw an arm around my neck and pulled me closer. I think you have. Alright, count me in. Rick, what about you? Our friend shrugged and grinned at us. How could I leave you on your own? You would all be lost without my tutoring. You're right about that. Great! We can tell your parents to go together next week to book our loadings to the next term. Oh, I still can't believe it. And she pulled me with him to the front garden where our families and our brand new life were waiting for us. Yes! Wir haben ein gutes Ende. Yes. Ich würde aber trotzdem sagen, wir klicken nochmal zurück zu der Entscheidung oben in der dritten Etage, wo die Frau gestanden ist, was passieren würde, wenn wir Monty nichts davon erzählen. Das würde mich nämlich jetzt noch interessieren. Und dann würde ich sagen, gehen wir nochmal komplett zum Anfang zurück und schauen, dass wir irgendwie die anderen Ende auch noch zusammenkriegen. Aber jetzt lassen wir hier nochmal die Credits durchlaufen. Ich muss auch mich nochmal hier bedanken an die Macher von dem Spiel, die mich ganz, ganz überraschend auf Twitter gefunden haben und mich da auch gleich abonniert haben und dieses Let's Play hier retweeten. Ich wollte einfach Danke sagen an Urtle Games für das alles. Ja, Errungenschaft freigeschaltet, Monty Gooden. Auf jeden Fall wollte ich Danke sagen dafür. Es ist wirklich eine Ehre, dass jemand auf mich aufmerksam geworden ist, wenn ich hier Spiel spiele. Da ich ja noch nicht wirklich groß bin. Und ja, ich war sehr überrascht und das hat mich wirklich sehr, sehr glücklich gemacht. So, thank you, Urtle Game, for the support. Die sind nämlich, glaube ich, Englisch, deswegen verstehen sie mich nicht. Was noch viel cooler ist, dass sie mich überhaupt retweeten. Aber jetzt würde ich sagen, warten wir gar nicht lange und starten nochmal ab diesem Punkt. Und zwar mit Play It Off. Embarrassed, I just shook my head and smiled shyly. It's nothing, I must have heard a branch breaking outside or something like that. Anyway, this place makes you nervous, isn't it? Let's check where those men are before they see us. He grabbed my hand and we kept walking as silently as we could, searching all the empty rooms and all the shorter corridors. There was a pile of loose ties and some other materials in the widest room, but apart from that we couldn't find any trace of the workers. Except that when we returned to the main corridor, one of the half-rotten wooden panels of the wall was slightly opened, and when we took a closer look it became evident that it was a hidden door with a staircase leading down to the second floor. We watched the door for a moment and then we looked at each other in complete confusion. This door wasn't here before. We passed in front of it before we stopped there, see? We were there, beside that window, and the panel was closed. I am completely sure. I nodded in agreement. I was sure as well. These corridors run in circle. The workers might have come down from the roof and gone through this door while we were searching them in another room. He scratched his head. It must be so. It surprises me that they have left it open for us to see, though. I looked around again. The feeling of being watched and mocked was more intense than before, but I wasn't going to say aloud anything about supernatural beings again. Not in front of Monty, at least. Well, our little mystery of how our suspect vanished that day is solved then. And there aren't many people who know this hidden passage. The possibility of our man being someone foreign to the school vanished too. Oi, stop looking around. There's no one else. We should get going and perhaps come back tomorrow with the others. I am a bit concerned about what have those men seen, to be honest. I raised my eyebrows with amusement. Really? You're particularly shouting from the roofs about our relationship, and now you're afraid of what a possible pair of criminals has seen? What? I thought I was being careful. I chuckled and led him by his hand to the main stairs. Careful, my ass. Rick must be blind if he isn't aware of us by now. I'm not afraid of his reaction, but remember other people are not understanding and technically we are going against the law. I know. I'm sorry. It's difficult to refrain myself when I'm with you. We let go of each other's hands when we started going downstairs sighting. But don't worry, they don't send people to jail for that anymore, and we have our fathers as a lawyer. He can help us if we get in trouble. I glared at him, horrified and dumbfounded. What the hell was he saying? I would die of shame if my father got to know about us. But then he threw his hate back and burst laughing. Oh. I was just joking, Alex. Jeez, relax a bit. He stopped laughing and tossed my hair with a fond smile. But perhaps in some years we could tell our families, don't you think? Things won't be always the same, and the world is changing fast, so who knows? Those words made my heart clench with painful hope. I smiled back at him. That would be actually wonderful. I hope you're right. And we went to the study room to meet our friends. I led the explanation to Monty, my head too busy daydreaming of how nice it would be if he didn't have to hide and I could proudly introduce Monty to my parents as my boyfriend. The four of us went back to that damn third floor that same evening after dinner. It was better with them by my side, of course, but I still had goosebumps all over every time I thought I saw something moving in the corner of my eye. Relax, Alex. Look, we'll have a lamp this time. Okay. Anscheinend ändert sich jetzt nichts. Nur, dass wir die Frau nicht gesehen haben. Ich glaube, das ist die einzigste Änderung, die wir jetzt haben. Und um meine Stimme ein bisschen zu schonen und euch nicht ständig dasselbe nochmal vorzulesen, würde ich sagen, wir machen hier einen kleinen Cut. Wir haben jetzt hier das gute Ende rausgespielt und wir kriegen jetzt nochmal dasselbe Ende. Nur, dass wir ganz ohne die Hilfe von Übernatürlichem draufgekommen sind. Dass da eine Tür ist. Und jetzt schauen wir nach, finden die Briefe und finden heraus, dass unsere Tante Mörder auf uns angesetzt hat, weil sie nicht will, dass wir als den richtigen Sohn von ihrem Mann oder ihrem ehemaligen Mann, nachdem er ja jetzt tot ist, das ganze Erbe erhalten. Ja, dann würde ich hier einen kurzen Cut machen und wir sehen uns dann einfach in der nächsten Folge wieder, während wir uns einer neuen Entscheidung stellen und sie dann anders treffen, als wie wir sie bisher getan haben.